if you've ever been in fitness or wellness, most women don't eat enough protein as it is. It's a challenge. Then you give them a GLP and they're not hungry at all. They don't want to eat a chicken breast, which they never wanted to eat before. And so you're just creating a cycle. And this is where there is an element of coaching, learning supplementation, learning exercise. I would highly encourage you guys to provide some sort of strength training resources, which you could hire someone else, find a program already built. You don't need to have that background. I think the hormone replacement, if you're watching this and you are in the TRT or HRT space, when you put testosterone into a female, the amount of water weight that they gain within like the first month is pretty crazy sometimes. And I know a lot of docs that have lost a lot of patients because this woman went in to feel better and look better, and all of a sudden she's got this little coating around her. We can see that on the InBody. We can totally track that and let her know that, hey, it's okay. We'll take care of it.
Welcome to Beyond the Scale. I'm your host, Bradley from InBody, and this is a podcast that exists to educate and empower the next generation of healthcare providers. And we're here to share powerful tips, tricks, tools, and ways for you to catalyze growth in the application of InBody's ecosystem of health assessment tools. My guest today is Justin Lesh, and he's the host of the Wellness Business Secrets podcast. He's a renowned speaker and wellness consultant, having worked with thousands of clinics over the last 18 months, focused on helping med spas and wellness clinics. And he's also the founder of Clinic Inner Circle, a coaching community and program for med spas and wellness clinic owners. Welcome to Beyond the Scale. Justin, thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it. I love the intro there.
Hey, my pleasure. You earned it. I've been excited to have this chat with you because I feel like you've been doing a lot of cool things in the industry, and you've got a lot of great background to be able to provide support for people that are using InBodies. So tell me a little bit more about where you got your start in healthcare and what inspired you to take this path that you're on now.
I'm going to do the best I can to give you the Reader's Digest version of this, but when I was 17 years old, I snapped my leg into like 1,000 pieces. And that took me off a path of wanting to be a pilot to I was in physical therapy, started working with a personal trainer, and I fell in love with exercise and working out. Went down the path to become a PT because I thought I can help people just like me. And then for anyone who's actually worked in PT, it's like the most terrible job ever in some ways. And so I stayed in the fitness and wellness path all the way through to strength conditioning. So I got my degree in exercise science, did strength conditioning, and was super blessed to just fall into like a career training UFC athletes at like 21. I'm traveling the country and the world, helping some top people that you would know, Chris Cyborg, Fabricio Verdum, like heavyweight champs. And here I am, like 21. It's like almost my first career, and I'm at the top. But then something happened that was just kind of life-changing. Was my mom had always struggled with depression and obesity. She had, her whole life had a gastric bypass, lost 100 pounds, gained it all back, ate her way out of it. I still remember her coming home from the doctor, and in her words, not his, "You're such a piece of crap, you ate your way out of a medical weight loss procedure." Now, he didn't say that, but that was what she heard. And I just watched her get sadder and sadder. And because she got sadder, she ate more food, which made her even sadder from there. And it became this vicious cycle. And when I was 22 years old, I lost my mom to her battle with depression and obesity. And I had this kind of stopping point of like, I have these skill sets. I'm helping people lose weight. I'm motivating them. I'm inspiring them. I'm doing all these things with these fighters to win an event when I could be making a bigger impact. And so I decided like at that point, I was going to change paths and start helping people like my mom lose weight. The biggest issue, and this comes up with a lot of my medical clinics now, is I didn't speak the language. I thought with all my background and my expertise, I'm going to come in there and get all these ladies in shape, but none of them cared about body fat composition. None of them cared about, the Krebs cycle or, lactic thresholds. They wanted to be toned. They wanted to be fit and healthy and sexy. And those weren't words I used. And so I really struggled at first when I opened my business because I didn't relate to them. And so I had to start learning to speak their language, and then also battling a ton of psychology. And I know for anyone that's in this space, like I would have women come in and they would be doing everything right, and they'd get on the scale and it'd be up a pound or down a pound or whatever it was, and they'd cancel the membership and I'd never see them again. And so this was my battle in my career until I really dialed it in. And one of the tools I did back when I had my brick and mortar locations was we got the InBody and we started having these conversations about like, hey, like this is going to happen. We set expectations. Fast forward to 2019, I sold my locations and just started kind of going around in marketing. I really enjoyed with the work I was doing. I worked with Alex Ramosi doing marketing for a little while, and just started working in the last 4 years in this wellness space, IV companies, med spas. I just fell into it. And especially in the last 2 years of the biomedical weight loss, I've been able to take the skill sets plus my mom's experience and really help a lot of these clinics that have the right tools. They have the right knowledge and implementation, but to speak the language, to bring the clients in, and also to be able to help them on the softer skills, because Dr. Smith might have to study for a board exam on how to prescribe medication, but he didn't subscribe to the board exam of running his business and helping people, which is probably the one he should have studied for more. And so that's really the shift that I've taken in the last 4 years. And that's kind of how it brings us up to today.
It really seems like a lot of people that go through medical training, in my experience, talking to people that have InBodies, struggle with the business side of it, especially if they're clinicians and they have a great knowledge of the field that they're working in, but operating the business or even customer service, a lot of times they fall short in that. So I totally get that in how you've entered the space to be able to help people do that. Are you able to draw from your experience in your fitness business to be able to support people in these wellness clinics and med spas as well?
I think the one thing I want to empower any of your med spas and wellness clinics listening is, like, if you care, like when I had my brick and mortar gyms, we had a dumbbell and we had a nutrition plan and paper, and we were charging people probably more than a lot of you were charging for medical weight loss and getting similar outcomes. And so to me, like, I'm passionate about, you have better tools. You just have to learn to connect. And because if you show someone you care about them, the rest will happen. But you have to learn the skills of getting them in the door, and then how to get them to actually stick to what they need to do to get the results. So I've loved that inspiration, because it just, if I had had the lab coat, we would have had 10x. And so I'm so happy for the people that are doing this, but I just want to empower them that you can do way more.
Take me back to when you were choosing a body composition analyzer. How did you hear about InBody, and why did you choose to invest in one?
It's a small world, but Bradley, you were actually there all of 10 years ago or whenever it was, but I was at a part of an organization, and they had an InBody person come and speak. I believe it was you or one of your team. And so I was kind of introduced to it, got to hop on it, experience it. And I think that my first impact was, wow, the amount of conversations I had on a daily basis of, oh, Mrs. Smith, it's probably just water weight, or I don't think you're eating enough, or all these things were instantly solved in one sheet of paper. And that was just a huge eye opener to me of, like, this is worth every penny if people don't see it right off the bat.
Was it easy to implement, and what was the frequency of your testing when you were doing it?
So yeah, it was awesome to implement because everyone was excited about it. My staff really was bought in, which was the biggest thing. And we made a point that our staff, kind of as an accountability, had to weigh in every month, so then they could talk about their weigh-ins with the patients and the clients. We implemented it, really, there was like 3 or 4 different areas that I would say we used that. And we kind of did one at a time. But the first thing we did was from our sales setting. People had all been to gyms before. We had, Planet Fitness down the street, all this stuff. But when people walked into our clinic, and I say clinic, but I mean, we treated it that way. We were really friendly. But the first thing we did was we had them hop on the InBody and just explain that, like, this isn't somewhere where you just come to work out. This isn't somewhere where you just come to lose weight. We're going to be on a journey with you. And if you fall off the wagon, we're going to pick you up and put you back on, and we'll track it through this device. And just showing them how we're going to graph it over time, it just set the stage for what we were going to sell you, a long-term package. There was no short-term quick fix. This was something you're going to do for the next couple of years.
What kind of impact did it have on your business? If you think back from before you had the InBody to after you had the InBody, what kind of notable changes did you see in the way you were maybe able to sell or market or even generate revenue in your business?
I was in fitness for almost 20 years. And so up until I had my InBody, which was at about year 15, the only way we could show results was a before and after photo, which was totally subjective. We had, inches and measurements, which took forever or super time consuming. We didn't want to do them very regularly. Or you'd have someone hop on a scale that could fluctuate all the time. And so the minute you took all of that off me and my staff's plate and we could show them, also to add backing to Mrs. Smith, who's starving herself, we could now show you are doing a detriment to your body. You're actually increasing your body fat percentage. Yeah, you think that I'm telling you to eat too much, but like, it gave a number back. It took the feeling out of it to some extent, which is needed, especially for if you're dealing with females. So that was huge. We built it into our packages. And so it was no longer access to exercise. It was no longer access to nutrition. It was, hey, this is a program that is going to adjust specific to you. Now, depending on the program we had, we would either weigh in once a week or once every 2 weeks. Now, the once a week was very, very important to let them know we're looking at the average of those weigh-ins over 4 weeks. But we found that people, if they came in and weighed in, they didn't eat pizza the next day. And so we tracked this over time and just found our outcomes were better. And so there was also a perception of value to this. We were very, very clear at our front desk. We had a sign that said InBody scans $50. I think it was $49, sounded sexier. I never once charged for it. But when I sold a package or a membership, it was like, hey, you're going to get 4 scans per month. That's a $200 value, but we're going to build this into your pricing because I don't want you to fall off the wagon. I want to see what's going on every single week. And that was huge. And there was no one else in our area that was even doing anything similar to that at all.
What I hear you saying, it relates to an acronym I learned in fitness because my background is in personal training as well. And the acronym is EMACK, EMACK, and it stands for efficiency, motivation, accountability, consistency, and knowledge. And it sounds like what I hear you saying is the InBody provides those things for a business for you to be able to efficiently take somebody in, figure out where they're at, motivate them, hold them accountable as they move along in their journey, hold them consistent, and then provide knowledge that's going to help them grow.
I think one last piece I would just say is, especially for my newer salespeople, because we did have sales counselors, sometimes people would walk in, someone like you or I who looks like they're in good shape, and it would intimidate my team because maybe that person was in better shape than them. But the InBody doesn't look at how you look. It's just a number. And I'll tell you, for me to see myself at I think I measured with you a couple months ago, 19% was really high for me. I'm going to do whatever it takes. And so it really set the tone of everyone knew what their goals were really quick. And I think there's something really powerful in that, especially if you're not experienced in sales, to let the person see their number, see where they want it to be or should be. And it doesn't take a ton of psychology to get them to say, no, I want to do this. What's next?
Take me through a typical consultation. Once the InBody test is done on the body composition analyzer and you've got the results in front of you, you're sitting down with somebody. What is that experience like, and how did you tailor that to their goals and what they were hoping to achieve?
Yeah, so typically we kind of split it in 2 sections because the InBody is a lot of data. And so what we found is people, when we were doing a sales consult, we almost wanted them more emotional for a bigger decision. So we would start with the data, we'd go through it and say, hey, this is where this is at. Your lean body mass is here. Your fat mass was here. I won't use my line for you today, Bradley, but we tried to have a little fun with it, but we were also very clear, this is where it is. This is probably where it should be. And then just kind of overwhelming them a little bit of hey, based on your lean body mass, this is how many calories you burn per day. And so if you want to lose the weight and be able to keep it off, we want this high so you don't yo-yo like you've always done in the past probably. And so we would just use that baseline and then set the tone of, when you are on our program, you will weigh in once a week or twice a week, and we'll watch this little line to make sure that you're getting results. And if for any reason you fall off the wagon, we're going to be on you. And if for any reason it goes the negative direction, we're going to adjust your program accordingly. Does that make sense? And then that was my segue right into our actual consultation. Now, I would take all that data and I'd have it right next to my clipboard. And then we would go into, so why are you here? And at that point, they were already kind of broken down a little bit of I just saw how many pounds of fat I have. And so I've always been huge with my mom's background. I need to understand your why. Numbers are great. 30 pounds is great, but why? Why do you want to do it? And so we spent a ton of time on that. Who does this goal affect? Give me their names. What happens if you don't make this decision now? If you don't change your lifestyle now, where are you at in 5 years? Future pacing it into the future. Tell me, if you were at your goal tomorrow, what would you do different? What's the first thing you're going to do when you weigh 30 pounds less? I needed them to paint this picture in their head. The next thing that was really cool that we already did, but when we added the InBody, was we treated this very medical. And so the analogy I always gave, if you came to a doctor for an infection and they didn't ask what medications you were on previously or for it, you wouldn't feel very well taken care of. So if someone's coming in to lose weight, I need to know what you've done in the past. And so I would go into, okay, you did XYZ boot camp, you did fen, whatever it was. And I'd always ask, what did you do? How did it work? What did you like about it? And what could have been better for you? And I was always a little bit direct in the sense of, okay, you did keto, you lost 20 pounds, that's great. So what happened? Well, I went back to eating normal and I gained 30 back. Okay, so you did keto, you liked the way the food tasted, but you're actually up net 10 pounds. You can't do that again, right? And they're like, oh, right. And we always made them kind of burn the bridges and see in the past why things didn't work. And normally it didn't work for a couple of reasons. Either didn't have all the components of fitness, But the biggest one typically was there was no mechanism like an InBody to track and have accountability. And so then when we came to our actual programs, we're like, look, you've done workouts, we have workouts. You've done nutrition, we have nutrition. But we also combine it with this accountability where if it's not working, we're going to fix something. Does that make sense? And at that point, we had just positioned it to where they're like, oh, it does. And then the rest was easy. And so that was how the InBody really set the tone. And then it was kind of the back end of accountability was the last thing we talked about. And it just sandwiched the sale together.
In my experience here at InBody, a lot of people see the objective data that the InBody is going to give as an obvious thing that they want to be able to see. But a lot of people come back and they ask, how do I interpret this information? In some sense, the amount of muscle somebody has or water or body fat that they have is, we understand what those things mean, but I think what they're really asking for is what you're describing in terms of the subjective conversation that they can have and how do they flow in and around that data to get to know their patient or their customer to be able to leverage this tool to get the greatest return on the investment for it.
Yeah, so I was consulting for a franchise the other day that does wellness modalities, cryotherapy, lymphatic drainage, things like that. And they utilize the InBody. And we were talking about how like you can tell your clients, hey, if they do these treatments, if they eat the right way, if they do the stuff they're supposed to do, that maybe their extracellular water goes. Mrs. Smith is not like, I'm going to say no to pizza today and I'm going to show up for my cryotherapy to get rid of extracellular water. But if you can bridge the gap between that number and that data point and her goal, which is to have her knees not hurt, to be able to dance at her daughter's wedding, to be able to move and go for walks with her husband, now you have data and an emotion, and that will elicit change, and people will pay for that at the same time. And that was just kind of one way you can use the InBody, but kind of bridge the gap between the two.
Yeah, it sounds like you're bridging the data with a behavior or a behavior that leads to perhaps a negative adaptation in the results that we're seeing on the result sheet.
I think that's accurate. I think the other piece that's important too is there's a lot of medical providers that are stepping into the medical weight loss space, not realizing whether they want to or not. You're stepping into a coaching space. You are now dealing with psychology. I mean, there's years and years of trauma in a lot of these women that are going through eating disorders and things. And it's not as simple as giving them an injection and a scale. And so the scale, the InBody provides you a tool to really ask questions. I used to feel a huge burden when someone would come in and have a bad weigh-in. And it was like, I don't know, like I would try to fix it or change it or I'd, change the protocol implementation. Now I can see the data and I can say, why do you think this is this way? Why do you think you lost muscle? Well, I didn't really eat enough protein. But in the old days, I would have changed her meal plan. I would have added more protein. She already wasn't eating enough protein to begin with. And so it allows you to just take the data and go, what do you think? And they can't argue with it. It's right there in front of them.
Yeah, I like to describe a few different learning curves that people experience when they start using an InBody. One is just that I can turn it on and run the test and get the result sheet to print out, and I understand what's printed on the result sheet. Two is now I'm looking at two result sheets side by side, and I'm trying to see what the numbers are, what is the difference in the numbers on the result sheet. And then three is actually lifting your head up and looking at the person in front of you and then being able to discuss those results. And it sounds to me like perhaps there was a part of you that maybe felt like you had to have all the answers in the beginning, and then you made this transition to where you became kind of like a partner to that person and just trying to help them figure out what was happening along the way.
I think the biggest piece advice I give anyone, especially in weight loss, is your clients are not dumb. Most of them have probably have more experience dieting than you ever will in your career. And so by asking questions and just holding their hand and helping them when they need it, you will get way further than telling them what to do. And the InBody just gives them the data to make a decision. And you're just there to hold it for them. Like, all right, I think you're good. What do we need to do that? And once you learn to do that, your job gets so much easier and you're going to get way better outcomes.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you've got a lot of knowledge and wisdom around how to apply the body composition in coaching and wellness businesses. And it sounds like all of that could apply to your current venture, helping med spas and clinics. Tell me more about that business and what do you provide for those wellness clinics and med spas? What does your entity provide?
Sure. So, Clinic Inner Circle, our goal is to provide community and coaching for the med spas and wellness clinics. On the community standing, if you've been an entrepreneur, it's lonely. There's just you half the people that surround you are clients or staff members. You don't have someone to talk to about staffing, overwhelm, marketing. You're having to kind of brave this road yourself. And so we have community where you can go find another clinic just like you that's in 2 states over and see what's working for them. And so that's the community aspect. We want to put you with people who are nerdy about InBody. Like I want people to geek out on these things. How are you using the result sheets? And so we really want that. And so we do events, we do calls, things there. The coaching piece is where, if you can't tell, I'm really passionate about, because most of you didn't go to school to do a lot of the stuff you're doing now. And so what we do is we provide coursework on everything from how to run a Facebook ad, how to effectively bring people in for different campaigns, even the nerdy dumb stuff of like how to properly do a phone call to get the person to answer the phone and show up. How do you get them to show up and not just be a tire kicker who wants a cheap service? And then how to do these consults and sales to where you feel comfortable sitting down with them, taking information. And then I think the biggest thing that I'm trying to impart to more clinics is your worth. We are really big on helping you package and stack modalities, things like InBody, red light therapy, medical weight loss, to where now, instead of charging $200 a month for a semaglutide injection, you're charging $3,500 for 12 weeks, and you're getting this whole comprehensive holistic program that's going to get them an actual result. And so we have coursework for that. And then we actually have coaching calls weekly. I'm on them like 5 days a week. Everything from sales role play, where we'll literally role play with you or your staff back and forth. We practice objection overcomes. We do lead generation calls where we talk not just about like ads, but how do you run internal promotions? How do you network? And we go through, and I coach, but then our people are in the group also share what's working for them. We even do a front desk training call where we have our clients send their front desk to it, and we help them get better show rates, how to confirm appointments, how to give tours. Really, we just do this because it's overwhelming when you own a small business, whether you're at a franchise level with 100 employees or 2 or 3, there's just a lot on your plate. And so we're there just to come alongside you and give you the best practices we see, because we're all across the industry.
What are some of the most common challenges you see as you go in and you start to look at all these thousands of different clinics? What are some of the most common challenges or mistakes that you see people doing when they set up and run their businesses that you're able to help them with?
I'm laughing because the biggest problem we see in business is the same thing we see in medical weight or in weight loss when you're coaching a weight loss clients. Weight loss is a number. It may not feel like it's working. Like anyone's got an InBody that gained muscle, the woman's like, I think I'm getting bigger. And they've actually shrunk, but they weigh the same, so they feel like they're worse. Businesses make too many decisions off feelings and not numbers. Marketing, sales, these are all numbers. Even like how good of a job you're doing at fulfillment is a number. And teaching businesses to track that so they can make data-driven decisions is one of the first things we do, because you can't just go on how it feels, because you're going to feel bad some days. You're going to feel good some days, but we just got to make sure the number is actually growing.
Yeah, and that can have a impact on many different levels of the business too, in terms of the sentiment of the staff or the team. How open are they to continue to learn and grow or connect with the patients, or how well the business grows altogether.
I'll give you a great example. We were consulting for a franchise, big medical weight loss chain, like 20 plus locations. And they were really concerned about their website because they felt like their website wasn't doing it. They felt like that. But we opened the data up and looked at their performance as a whole, and they were only converting about 6% of patients that walked in the door onto a program. Well, the problem was the background, the owners, they were very much into web design. That was their background. And so they felt like that was the big glaring thing, was the website, when it was not. It was a sales issue. Vice versa, I've had a lot of clinics where like, well, if we just get the next machine or trizepatide versus semaglutide, or we get this, then we can fix it. But like, that's not what the data is showing you. And so we have to look at the data and make sure we focus on the most important thing. And that's where the coaching piece comes in, because sometimes I have to like pull that out and have people separate what they're focused on versus what they should be actually doing.
Take me through what the process is like for a new clinic that comes to work with you. What's your assessment process like for them? What kind of things are they going to experience when they first start to work with you?
So one of the first things we do, and this is an optional thing, but we include it in our pricing. It's not a negotiable for us. Is we actually help them build a marketing machine, as we call it. And we have a CRM that we use that helps us to track how many leads are you getting, how many appointments are coming in, how many are getting actually showing up to the clinic, and how many are converting. And that is almost always step one, because just like the InBody, if someone doesn't know where they're starting, how can you track if I'm doing anything to actually help you? And so we have to have that just goes first. And then at the end, then we can start figuring out, okay, based on where you're at, what's next? We have kind of identified there's 4 main levels that we'll assess when you come in. Normally, the first one for most clinics is going to be paid acquisition. If they have not figured out how to acquire clients profitably, that is the number one thing. Because if I don't have money, I can't do anything else. And everything starts to hurt a little more when you watch your bank account drain. So we're typically going to start with paid acquisition. How do we get profitable clients? The second one is typically they figure out paid acquisition. Then there starts being a time constraint. Now the doc or the person's doing so many consults, they don't know what to do with themselves. They're stressed. They're just all over. So then we start working on scaling up operations. How do we get front desk doing better things to take stuff off the owner or salesperson's plate? And so we have systems and training for that. The third stage of this is you're making a little bit more money. You've got sales doing pretty good. You've got some basic tasks. Now you have to legitimately scale your team. You have to start hiring leaders and things like that. And that's a whole different skill set versus just selling and marketing. And so we kind of take you through that. And then the fourth stage is creating freedom. And this is where you start developing directors. This is where some of our multi-location owners are at. You're doing $150,000 plus a month, which sounds like an awesome problem to have, but it creates other problems. So we want to make sure we have education and goals for each level. And so that's kind of how we have it structured in our curriculum.
Talk to me about how the InBody fits into this structure of a business as well, because you mentioned, we want to generate more leads, and then we want to convert those leads, and we probably want to retain them longer so we can continue to grow our business. How does the InBody fit into those areas for a medical clinic or a med spa, or even any other type of business that would invest in that technology?
First and foremost, if you're medical and you are treating someone for a disease, which is probably what you're doing if you're doing medical weight loss, you're looking at obesity, having some sort of quantitative data on this, also knowing that the biggest risk factor for medical weight loss is atrophy and loss of lean body mass. And if I'm honest, I get kind of on a high horse about this, but there are a lot of bad practitioners in this space right now that are just drug mills pumping out Ozempic, semaglutide, tirzepatide to 50, 60-year-old women who are already at a huge risk of loss of lean body mass. And then they're not providing any resources or education or metrics to show they're damaging their bodies. And I think you're going to see in the next 5 to 6 years, a lot of people who don't look the way they want to look because of this. They're going to have a lot of health issues. And so that's a big part, is right off the bat, people are starting to know this when they walk into these clinics. And it's for you to say, hey, this device right here is going to help us make sure you keep losing weight the right way. It's going to make sure that you don't lose the lean body mass. So you have the curves, your face, all the things you want. And if for any reason you're not getting the results you want, we can adjust the dosage, the medication, the treatment. So at the very beginning, you're giving peace of mind to that person that this is a professional medical practice and we're going to take care of you based on data. You would not go to a doctor for blood pressure medication if they did not test your blood pressure. You'd be stupid. And so this is the same thing. So from a sales setting, that is the huge thing. From a marketing standpoint, when I had my InBody, even in my gyms, a lot of people aren't willing to invest in the InBody, and the cost isn't that much, but most people wouldn't. And so we created a lot of strategic partnerships that we would work with yoga studios, we'd work with supplement stores, we'd work with all these places where we'd either bring it out to them and people had to sign a waiver to get on it, or they would send their people to us. And these people would walk into our practice or meet with one of our staff to use it, and then they got brought into our ecosphere. And so we encourage the medical weight loss providers or even the clinics, the InBody's portable. Take it places. It's super fun. It's sexy. It's quick. It's easy. Health fair results, and it creates leads very, very quickly. And so that's something that we've always enjoyed. We used to actually have a landing page we built, which I don't know if we were allowed to, but that positioned us coming on site with our InBody as like a $5,000 thing. And then we would donate it. So we actually went to like some small charity events and stuff, and they gave us like tax write-offs for coming out there. And so there's a lot of ways to utilize that, especially around New Year's and things. The other piece I really liked is the reactivation. So part of the software that we build out for our clients and clinic in our circle has the ability to do what's called a reactivation campaign, where you can take all your old leads, all your old contacts, and put them into campaigns that don't feel spammy. You don't want to have a 10-page thing get text messaged. But if it's like, hey, Bradley, we just got this new device to test muscle mass and body fat. Would you want to come test it out for us? Simple personalized message, but to 5,000 people. Bradley comes in, we do the InBody, we do a consult, he goes to that. And so reactivating the old people. And then for people that have been on the InBody during treatment, when they take a break, go missing in action, cancel their account, we would always leave with the future pace of, hey, Brad, I know you need to take a break, go on a vacation, whatever. Let's schedule your next weigh-in for 30 days from now. And can we agree that if you start going backwards, you're going to start up again? All right, cool. And we would just have that on the calendar and it was booked out. And so that was a huge piece. And we would do that every 3 months again. Hey, let's get you back in. Let's scan. Let's see where you're at. And those things alone created so much revenue that cost us nothing on the outbound side, but got people results. And it was just us doing what was true to our core principles.
Yeah, what I hear you saying is the InBody in marketing terms is a good ethical bribe in a way to engage somebody in a way with value to where they're going to take the action of coming in to sit down with you. And, sometimes it just takes a little bit for somebody to, they're already thinking about it or it's something that they're maybe feeling guilty about that they want to do. And if you're just sending a quick message inviting them in, that could be all it takes for them to take that next step to either start or even come back.
I mean, I just, it's funny, even for myself, when I saw you the other day, getting on the InBody when you've been on it before, especially, there's just the like, all right, it's time to get serious here. And the cool thing is if that's at your clinic, where the next step is right there, that makes it a lot easier.
Yeah. I heard you mention blood pressure in there as well. And a lot of people know InBody for their body composition analyzers, but part of our ecosystem is also automatic blood pressure monitors. And then recently we added a grip strength dynamometer. And all of these tools will actually integrate into one ecosystem. So you can do all of the tests. The results can print out on the result sheet, go up to the cloud for the business to manage all of that data. And you can even message people through the cloud software to anybody that's downloaded the app to see their results there. So even within our ecosystem, if somebody's come in and tested and they've downloaded the app to view their results, you can communicate through the software to help re-engage them. And we have a lot of educational content in there that you can share with them as well.
That's awesome. I think one thing I want to mention, you said the cloud. One of the things that I will say that was kind of cool for us at our facility was we didn't have a check-in system, and a lot of you clinics don't, where like someone scans a card or whatever. But what we had set up was with the cloud-based InBody thing, we could look at a monthly report and quickly filter who had not weighed in. And so then it was just a, hey, Brad, I saw you haven't weighed in this month. Like, let's get you in here. What's going on? And typically those check-ins where we discovered someone was off the wagon or needed help. And so having that cloud really allowed us to do that as well, which is a really cool asset.
What advice would you offer to someone just getting started with an InBody to help them have great success? Maybe some hacks that you have, growth accelerators, secrets that you've learned over time that may not be so much common knowledge that we haven't discussed yet.
Yeah, I mean, we do a lot of fun things in a clinic inner circle. And so a couple that I loved, I used to do, but I've seen done really well in clinics. There's a TRT chain that we work with that does hormone therapy and targeting men. So they've made all first responders and military can come scan for free. And they just put it out there. Hey, we love our military. We love our first responders. Well, now you got a bunch of 45-year-old men who care about the way they look. They care about the way they perform walking into their clinics. And it's all goodwill. So that was a really cool one. And I think that I would encourage someone, if you have an InBody, even if you're not in TRT or anything, but just it's a great way to give back. It doesn't cost anything. And so that's something I would encourage you guys to do. As it gets to busier seasons of the year, know that if you have an InBody, there are so many companies, especially corporate, we do this a lot, that are doing their internal weight loss challenges. And so we literally would just call and send emails, say, hey, we have this device. Would you guys like us to come at the beginning and the end of your challenge? And then we would just ask permission to make them an offer. And so I went into Quicksilver Clothing, was across the street from my facility. We had a corporate account with them, Cleveland Golf, Gatorade, big companies that I had no business partnering with, brought us in and did every one of their employees on the InBody. And so I just had a staff member there for a whole day, at the beginning of January and at the end of March. And we probably got, so many leads, so much assets from that. So there's just little small things that it just takes an email. It just takes a phone call and say, hey, I have this. I'd like to bring it to you. Are you okay with that? And no one's going to say no.
When it comes to return on investment, a wellness or transformation challenge can be a business model on its own. And like you're saying, once you figure it out, you can show up to any number of businesses and be able to apply that, or you could even do it within your own business. And from my experience, for one gym in specific that I had worked with in Oklahoma, it was their biggest lead generation activity that they did all year. So they put all of their attention into this one transformation challenge, and they would bring in hundreds of people because they'd have people bring their friends. They would do paid traffic to it, and they'd have hundreds of people that would come in to do this challenge. And it was such a low barrier offer for them to join, but it got them in their network, and they were able to build value in that experience. And then that value would translate into that person becoming a member at the gym and then continuing on. And one of the things that was most notable to me was how remarkable that this business made the prize or the carrot at the end of the stick that these people were working toward. And he would use his airline points and his timeshare, and he would fly the top two winners to Hawaii with their spouse on the house for winning his challenge. So it was like an all expense paid trip, and they probably paid under $100 to join this challenge. But it was so remarkable that everybody went out and shared it around the community, and more people wanted to join, and he didn't have to do any other marketing outside of that.
We used to do, and we actually built this for our clinic in our circle last year. So it's built in our protocols and stuff. But we would do a New Year, New challenge, and it was a team challenge. And you didn't have to. We would only encourage them to offer $5,000 grand prize, but enough that people were like, oh man, we got to work together on this. And we would have tiers of service. So you could come in and join the challenge for $100 and just get some InBody scans, some basic nutrition. But shockingly, if you're in there and you want to win and there's an option for $100, or there's a $900 option that gets you all this stuff that's going to make it better to win or faster, people will take it. And so one of our clients last year, they put up the $5,000 grand prize. They spent $0 in ad spend, just organic marketing, and they brought in about $37,000. I think they had 134 people in the challenge, which they're in a smaller town. This wasn't like LA, but it was pretty much primarily based on the InBody, because it's really hard to track effective, healthy weight loss any other way. And if you're doing it, I don't want to talk bad on any other companies, but there's a lot of like image scanners you're seeing now, but they don't show you the data, and they also take a long time, which operationally you can't bring people in and out very quickly on. So just be aware of that if you're going to do a challenge.
It sounds like with the pricing on it, you're bundling the testing into different programs that you're offering. You're offering it for free to people in order to engage them to come in and convert them possibly into other programs or products or services. What other kind of ways do you encourage clinics that you work with to price the InBody or work that into their return on investment that they're experiencing? Because sometimes that can come in a direct return on investment where we're getting $50 for the test and the consultation. But other times, what I hear you saying is that we're not going to charge for it because the return on investment is more secondary down the line and more indirect.
Yeah, I think a hard lesson that a lot of people learn in this business is attrition. Someone comes into your service and they come in for a month or 2 months or 3 months and they leave. And so it's attrition is, if you started with 100 members this month, how many members would you end with if you didn't sign anybody else up? And what we found when we implemented the InBody with the regular scans that had some increased accountability automatically was our attrition dropped and our lifetime value increased. So we knew at the time we were doing a monthly revenue model, someone was paying $250 a month. By having the InBody, they would stay an average of 2.5 more months without any other changes. So automatically us buying that, every patient or client became worth an extra $600, $700, which allowed us to spend more in market or made our profit margins go up without doing anything else. And so that's something you have to look at is, will this tool organize and allow you to give better care and therefore keep people longer? I'm seeing a lot of medical weight loss clinics now where someone hits their goal. They're using the InBody or a scale like that. They'll hit their goal and now they're off semaglutide or whatever it is. But this person doesn't want to lose the reoccurring, like, hey, I'm checking in. They're scared to lose that the guardrails they've had. And so maybe they stay and they do an IV once a month, but they get to weigh in, they get a little consultation. They'll keep paying for that. And I think a lot of people lose sight of that when they're so focused just on their modality and not the support they provide around it. And the InBody is a great way to do that without taking a ton of man hours.
Yeah, if you're a wellness or medical clinic out there listening to this, do you measure your customers' lifetime value Is that something that you commonly see, Justin, people measuring, or is it a metric that you're able to introduce to help them broaden their perspective on their business?
I love introducing to them, especially because I have a passion for paid ads, which I won't go too far into today, but you have to pay acquisition. It costs you something to get a new patient, whether you're paying money to Facebook and Instagram to bring them in, whether you're paying in your hourly rate to go out and talk to people, there's always a cost. And so you have to make sure that the return on that is worth it. And so we want people to track what is that like. And the reason the lifetime value is important is if I understand that I spent $1,000 in marketing this month and I got 10 patients, that those 10 patients, maybe they're $200 a month. So it's only $2,000. That's not that much money. But if I know that the lifetime value of each of those patients is 10 months at $200, now those 10 patients are worth a lot more. That's $20,000. And so I'll gladly spend more on marketing and I can grow faster. But if you don't know that, if it's an unknown, it's really just a crapshoot. And we're back to marketing being a feeling, not a number. And so that's where you have to really be educated. The only issue I will say is a lot of businesses watching this, sometimes you're newer in business. And so you haven't had time to gather data on that lifetime value. But once you hit about a year, you should have a really good idea of what that is. And then that's another step in our process of really how do we elevate the lifetime value, whether it's adding more services, selling more things, or just keeping them longer, because you can increase the revenue in your business without making any changes to sales and marketing.
Let's talk about that increase in revenue. And you talked earlier about kind of diversifying the package of what you're offering. Maybe if you're a med spa or a wellness clinic and you're just offering a weight loss program or a GLP-1 injectable or sublingual or something. But when you're able to add the InBody to that, you're adding more value. And you mentioned stacking modalities to that. Tell me more about what kind of things are you seeing? What kind of things are you recommending and helping businesses to implement short term and maybe even longer term?
Before I answer that question, I just want to make sure everyone understands. I think there is a powerful, powerful tool modality that you can be adding that is probably worth more than any of the cool equipment out there. And that is just caring and accountability. Do not underestimate what people will pay for that. People pay therapists hundreds of dollars to just listen to them. And I feel like a lot of providers will like go buy a $2,000 or $200,000 laser device because they want to get more value. When if you had just made Mrs. Smith feel special and listened to her when she walked in and really given a damn about what she ate, that probably would have been the best tool you could have added. Now, that being said, I'm a nerd, so I will go into the geeky stuff, but I want you guys to hear that. That is probably the most important one, if I could encourage anyone. But I think there are some really cool things coming in this space. I really am a huge fan of red light therapy, both from a business and from a science perspective. But the cool thing about red light therapy is it's a fixed asset. It sits there. It doesn't cost you anything. It's very easy to operate. I would encourage you guys as you're building packages to look at things that don't require staff and any more expense to have someone use it. I think another cool one I'm seeing a huge trend towards is as you're solving one problem, you're creating another. And so you're solving a weight loss problem, but now you may have excess skin, you may have deposits. And so I'm seeing some huge trends in the body sculpting and cryotherapy space that are really helping with some of that stuff. And so you can start seeing some of the devices where you can charge 60, 70, 100, $200 a session for some of these sculpting procedures. They don't solve the weight loss problem, but as the weight loss starts coming off, they're a great next step. So that's another great one. All these PEMF, IR saunas, hyperbarics, another one I'm seeing actually come up a lot more that's doing a lot of great stuff. Also, I will say, I think medical weight loss is a great segue into a lot of the hormone therapies that are out there. If I can get someone in for a medical weight loss program, it's not hard for me to then get them to do labs and open up a whole other pathway if I'm in the medical space. I'm seeing a whole bridge again of medical weight loss being the gateway into the psychedelics and depression, anxiety spaces with some of the ketamine clinics, NAD therapies, things like that. Even IV therapy. 80% of the population is overweight. And most of them have problems that have nothing to do with their actual weight, but they attribute it to it. So Mrs. Smith is moody, and she thinks if she just lost weight, she would be in better shape, when really she needs hormone replacement therapy. Or Susie Smith has terrible energy, and it's not just because she's overweight. There's a bunch of other things. And so when you stack these modalities, it increases the value, but you also ensure they're feeling better. And at the end of the day, your goal is not to help them to lose weight. They'll say that. Your goal is to help to make their life better. And if you can find a way to do that and kind of sneak it in with the thing that they want, you will make more money and you'll keep them longer.
Yeah, I hear you talking about blending the medical weight loss GLP-1s with hormones. And one of the challenges with the GLP-1s is that people lose intracellular water. The relationship between the water and the sugar and how that's metabolizing and not going into the cells. People are losing water in the process. And I was at a conference for a hormone pellet manufacturer, and they were sharing that the patients that are using these weight loss medications alongside of hormones are maintaining or even gaining lean mass or muscle mass while at the same time losing their body fat mass. And in other instances where they're not experiencing or using hormone replacement, they're just losing the lean mass. And if that's the only modality that they're applying, then that may provide a lot more risk in the marketplace. Like you were saying earlier, 5, 6 years down the road, we may see quite a few problems.
Yeah, I think it's funny. I think the speaker you mentioned, I saw him speak at a conference right before that. And there is a lot of issues of, if you've ever been in fitness or wellness, most women don't eat enough protein as it is. It's a challenge. Then you give them a GLP and they're not hungry at all. They don't want to eat a chicken breast, which they never want to eat before. And so you're just creating a cycle. And this is where there is an element of coaching, learning supplementation, learning exercise. I would highly encourage you guys to provide some sort of strength training resources, which you could hire someone else, find a program already built. You don't need to have that background. But if you're not encouraging people to do those things, it is a detriment. I think the hormone replacement, if you're watching this and you are in the TRT or HRT space, when you put testosterone into a female, the amount of water weight that they gain within like the first month is pretty crazy sometimes. And I know a lot of docs that have lost a lot of patients because this woman went in to feel better and look better, and all of a sudden she's got this little coating around her. We can see that on the InBody. We can totally track that and let her know that, hey, it's okay. We'll take care of it. Here's a water pill or whatever it is. And so just understanding that psychology and then using the tools to back it up with the science is really huge.
And perhaps for clinics that maybe have a nurse practitioner working there, or they may not be as heavy on the clinical side of it, having partnerships with other medical providers that are able to also consult with their patient in and around these services may be valuable as well.
I think one of the coolest things that ever happened in my gym career was I had a client that had an issue, and I'm trying to remember what it was. I remember the conversation, but it might have been a knee issue, and she had some like bloating and whatever. And so I didn't know she did this, but she took her InBody scan into her doctor and was like, "Do you see this?" And her leg had showed more, mass or water or whatever it was on one side. And I would have never thought to say, "Hey, take this to your doctor." But he actually referred me a few clients after, saying, "Your gym's looking at this? Like, this is really cool." It didn't really affect what we were doing that much in our protocols at the gym, but I just thought it was cool that she brought it to him and it set us apart immediately. And he was able to see what she was talking about. And so I'm not saying that'll happen every time, but it was a cool way for me to create a collaboration and a network that I would have never had otherwise.
I want to dial back into the care and accountability that you mentioned there. And what kind of pillars do you think are important for a clinic or a business to consider when they want to add that layer of care or add more accountability to their practice?
I think the simplest way you can ask this is just tell everyone, if you looked at your bank account every morning, do you think you'd spend less money? And the InBody is that for your body. It's going to force them to do that. And so if every client that comes into your clinic loses weight consistently, they won't ever leave. And here's the thing, there's going to be times where they don't lose weight. They come in, but if you identify it and you're like, "Hey, I noticed you didn't lose weight. What's going on?" They're not going to go, "Well, I'm gaining weight, so I'm out of this place." They're like, "No, I need help." And so this just creates conversations, and sales is essentially conversations. You just need conversations that start. The InBody helps identify those. And so from a retention standpoint, people are always on a journey. The other thing is it also helps set future goals. I had a lot of clients that would come in and lose 20, 30 pounds of fat. And then their goal was, "Well, now I want to be strong. Now I want muscle. Now I want a booty. Now I want this." And I can track this on the same device and keep them in their same journey, their same consistency, but push them to the next program or the next thing. that if I didn't have that, they would have just gone somewhere else that was more suited towards that. So I think that's a big piece of it, helps you along whatever journey they're on as they go through the process.
Well, I think that's the greatest sales pitch for the InBody that I've heard in a long time. And I want to thank you for coming on here to share your time with me and also your continued support and encouragement of our brand. And I also want anybody that's listening to this to be able to connect with you if they're interested in learning more or maybe getting their business assessed to see if it's something that you can do to help them. So where can we go to find out more and connect with you?
You can find me on pretty much all the socials. It's just Justin Lesh. There may be a dot in there somewhere, but on Instagram, it's just Justin Lesh. And then on website, you can go to clinicinnercircle.com and you can learn more about Clinic Inner Circle and what we do. And we'd love to help you guys.
We will hyperlink those in the notes here. And so when someone wants to connect with you and get started, what kind of things do you have set up for them to be able to learn more about what you got going on, or you know, have a look into your ecosphere?
Yeah. So, I mean, we're big on, look inside and see if you like it. Like we know we're for some people and we know we're not. We have our program Clinic Inner Circle, which we talked about is super extensive. But what we do is we let people try what's called Clinic Inner Circle Lite. And I can even just kind of give you a quick tour on this, but Clinic Inner Circle Lite is essentially an intro to Clinic Inner Circle. We give you a ton of resources. We give you the blueprints to grow a clinic. And we also give you access to the community to really start communicating with people that are in your space right now. First and foremost, you get access to our community where you can come in and talk to other clinic and wellness owners. And we have all kinds of things with people coming in talking about, how to get payment plans, how to hop on a masterclass, how to, set up tech, all these things. We go through all this. You can ask questions. And then in our classroom, we have the Clinic Inner Circle Lite. Now, full Clinic Inner Circle has all kinds of resources. But in this one, we're going to go through everything on how do you turn intro services into gold? How do you get packages built? How do you get leads? How do you pitch people to actually get them to sign up for over $1,000 programs? How do you build a lead machine? We have this full thing, and this is all free. You can come in, check it out, use it. And then we also have a calendar that has offerings. Now, our full Clinic Inner Circle calendar has a lot of calls and coaching that I'm hosting. On the Lite, you do have access to one or two on here that'll really just help support you in the journey. But the goal is you can know what it's all about. And then our team will reach out if you want to do more. We'd love to help you. But get in the community, get in the classroom, learn as much as you can. And we would love to just have everyone that's on this call in there and just learn how to maximize what they do.
And we will hyperlink that in the show notes as well. And hope you guys get an opportunity to check that out. If anybody's interested in getting an InBody and this conversation helped you see the potential for that, and we can help you, you can go to learn.inbodyusa.com/Justin, and we got a special offer there. Someone on our team will follow up with you. And thank you again, Justin. I appreciate you so much.
Thank you, Brady. I appreciate being on here, man.